Morning everybody. I hope you can hear me at the back, can you? Good. I'm Tricia Gilby and I'm the leader of Chesterfield Borough Council. I was very sad to hear that Julie Richards, who's the Principal and Chief Executive of Chesterfield College, wasn't able to join us this morning. Julie became the principal of that college around the time that I became leader of this council, so we have sort of shared our experiences of getting into those lofty heights. And one of the stories I've heard Julie tell is when she was a catering student at Chesterfield College, there was a very important man from the council came to see the principal, and of course he was treated to lunch, and the students served that lunch, and Julie was obviously quite nervous about serving the very important man from the council, but it got to the dessert and everything had gone well, but unfortunately she managed to land his dessert in his lap. Now, at that time, Les McCulloch, who is a former member of this council, his name is on the boards at the top of the stairs, was the head of catering there, and he quickly ushered Julie out of the room and dealt with a very important man from the council. Anyway, it didn't appear to do her career prospects all that much harm, because she's now entertaining people from the council, but fortunately she's entertaining very important women from the council now, because at the same time as Julie became the principal of the college, I became leader of the council, Amanda Sargent became deputy leader of the council, Maureen Davenport became mayor of the council, and Liz Archer became mayoress of the council. And as Donna's already referred to, she's a senior member of our management team. As Sally's mentioned, Derbyshire County Council have a lot of women leaders, and in fact had a woman leader of the council until last May. We'll put that right in 4 years' time. But fortunately, there are now lots of very important women from the council, as well as important men, and actually I would argue that in local government everybody who works for the council is important, because everybody has a very important role in serving the people of Chesterfield. They voted all the councillors in. They choose from that, it's chosen who the political leaders are of the council, and they should have very much the confidence that that political leadership will deliver what they want, and that the officers of the council will get behind that, because they deliver it after all, and do that. And I'm very pleased to say at the moment, just over 3/4 of our population feel that we are doing a really good job. So it's my intention as the leader of the council to keep that up until the elections next year, and then hopefully I get re-elected by the people of Brimington to represent them on the council. My political group will be elected to continue as the majority group on the council, working obviously with the opposition parties, and we will start to deliver another 4 years of good things for the people of Chesterfield. This morning I said to my 8-year-old granddaughter, because I had a sleepover at their house last night, I said to her, today is International Women's Day, so when you go to school be very proud that one day you will be a woman. And she said, well, what are you doing, Grandma? And I said, well, I'm going into work to talk to a lot of inspirational women about what I do. And they seem to think that I'm inspirational. And she says, well, you are, Grandma. That was quite nice. Then she said, well, what do you do? And And I've had this problem with the jobs I've done all my life because they don't fit into any particular category. I started off working for as a clerk in an education office in Ripley. I then went to work for the careers service, going out and visiting employers and finding youth opportunities for young people in the workplace. I then became a housing officer here and a senior homeless officer before I gave up that to have my son. It wasn't possible for me to come back here part-time, so I started doing an Open University degree. And from there I went on to being an adult education tutor, working for the Open University, and actually it's that took me into politics, because I realised that as a working class girl born and living in Chesterfield, I didn't feel empowered enough to actually say I wanted to go to university when I was 18. But because Harold Wilson, who was a Labour Prime Minister, had set up the Open University, the university actually came to me, and I was able to study in my front room while my children were upstairs in bed, and go to tutorials at Chesterfield Library, and that's what got me on the way. And then working for the Open University, I worked with some fantastic people, deans and professors, amazing people. Watched what they did and moved on. But it was the fact that it was the Labour government that set up the Open University. It was the Labour government that set up the NHS, which has done more for women because of the advances it brought to women's health, and also for the career opportunities it offered to women, that I decided in the late 1980s that I would join the Labour Party. From that, I met my husband, who is now the longest serving councillor on this council, and it was through him that I started to build up my political networks. Now, I did try and become a councillor in 1998, but somebody else was determined to stop me, and at the selection meeting I lost by 1 vote. So I tried again in 2003, and I got selected that time. But the nature of politics is, as I've mentioned before, is you stand for election and there are other parties standing, and that year it was the Liberal Democrats that got the most councillors elected to the council, and they took power. I wasn't elected because Liberal councillors in the ward that I stood in were elected instead. I thought, well, this is a bit of a nuisance. But it wasn't that bad, because the fact that I hadn't become a councillor in 1998 put me in a very good position to be approached by the then leader of the council to ask, and he approached me one morning when I was on my back garden hanging out the washing, thinking, what a beautiful day, this washing will dry really quickly. And in those days, there was no mobile phones, and house phones were fixed to a wall. And I could hear the phone ringing, and I'm thinking, shall I answer that? Because it involved running up the garden, up the steps, into the house, getting the phone. Anyway, I decided to. And it turned out to be the then leader of the council, Bill Flanagan, who is also on the boards outside there as a freeman of the borough of Chesterfield. And he said, Bill Flanagan here. And I thought, oh. Because Bill Flanagan never rang anybody. But what he wanted to know was that would I be willing to have my name put forward as a non-executive director for the health boards, the organisations that run the NHS in the area, because the Labour government had been elected in 1997, and they were wanting to bring people who had more knowledge of the local communities onto boards at that time. And of course, the Tories off the boards at that time, but that wasn't what was said in public. And I thought, why is he asking me this? And I don't know anything about the health service and all that. But I said yes, because the most important thing always is to seize your opportunities. I went for several interviews, and I was successful in being deemed as a suitable person for an appointment. And then one came up at North Derbyshire Health Authority, and 2 years later, it was suggested that I applied to be the chair of Chesterfield Primary Care Trust. Those organisations were local organisations that combine the work that the GPs do with the work that public health do, with the work that mental health services do, but we're meant to really drill down into our communities and see what the health needs of those communities were. I think we had some very good successes. And in fact, I was talking to Imelda Cole, who was a health visitor for the Chesterfield Primary Care Trust in the art workshop earlier. I think Imelda's not here now, she's gone. But she was a health visitor, which, because of the way in which the Primary Care Trust diverted the income, was able to do some absolutely fantastic work with the most deprived areas in the country. And then we won some awards. And I was the lucky one that could go with all the people that had done the work to get the awards at places like the Dorchester Hotel, would you believe? That's one of the perks of the job. But in 2006, another Tricia Hewitt, decided that the health service shouldn't be run like that. It should be run on a big commissioning scheme, and didn't need local people to do that. I did try to continue on the board of the Derbyshire Primary Care Trust. It wasn't successful, so I thought, we don't have to be a weatherman to know where the wind's blowing. So, and I looked around for jobs that I could do. And one of those jobs was as Chief Executive for the voluntary sector. All the organisations in the voluntary sector that delivered training in some way were encouraged to join something called the Learning and Development Consortium. They didn't join it because of its name, did they? It's not a very sexy name. But there were benefits of them joining the consortium in getting contracts. And I went there as Chief Executive, and I took that organisation from being a project of Derby CVS to being a standalone organisation, winning its first regional contract. And the work from that we were able to spread across the whole of the East Midlands, and I'm very pleased to say organisations like Chesterfield Law Centre benefited from that. After I'd done that, I thought, well, I've done that, where should I go now? And Nottingham City Council were advertising some jobs, and I thought, there was one job that was about working with the voluntary sector to create new capacity, and I thought, well, I can do that. So I applied for that, but they said, well, we don't want you to do that job, we want you to do this job. And by the time I'd started the job, they'd started the courts, and they actually said, well, now we want you to do this job. And actually, all the 9 years that I was with Nottingham City Council, I moved around from job to job because we were in a state of flux in local government then. And I was seen as the person that could sort all previous messes out, and politicians put me at the front of all that to sort it out. But the experience that I gained from that was Nottingham is a much more diverse community than this part of North Derbyshire, so I got a lot more experience of working with people from African Caribbean, emerging African communities, the Pakistani and Indian communities, which is extremely beneficial, because as leader of a council, even if your population is only roughly 5% of minority ethnic groups, you still need to understand. In fact, you probably need to understand more, you'd say. And so I did that, and I also had the pleasure of working alongside Councillor John Collins and Councillor Graham Chapman, who are arguably the most powerful leaders in the East Midlands area. And I watched watched how Councillor Collins behaved and decided, well, I wasn't going to behave like him, but I could see he was a very effective leader. But I watched how Graham Chapman behaved, and I thought, yeah, I can learn a few things from that. And I worked very, very closely with them, which was unusual because I wasn't, the highest level of director. I was actually a service manager. It was just the type of work that I did that brought me in a lot of contact with them. I watched and learnt, and then in 2015, when I was elected to the council here and Derbyshire County Council after a by-election, I decided that I was going to put some of the things that I'd learnt from them into practice. Well, that must have worked because 2 years later I became leader of this council. So I'm very, very pleased that I sort of had the opportunity to work with them. I want to be a very different leader of the council to perhaps those people who have been before me, because I'm very much a person that believes in the fact that we've got 2 eyes and 2 ears and only 1 mouth. So I think you will hope to find me a much more quiet leader than some leaders in the past. I'm not going to be banging on the table, shouting from the rooftops about things, but I hope that you will see me around the place and that you will actually see me leading from the back, because that's the way in which I was told when the Primary Care Trust came to an end. I had led the Primary Care Trust, and that was a very successful Primary Care Trust. We were in the top 15% of all primary care trusts in the country, and so as leader of this council, I will be looking out all the time for the people of Chesterfield and the businesses of Chesterfield, and I will be leading from the back, because that's where you can see everything that's happening, making sure everybody is okay, as well as protecting them, but encouraging other women to come forward. And part of mine and Amanda's plan for the future will be very much creating a legacy so that other women will follow us as leader and deputy leader of this council. Thank you.